The interview was supposed to be easy, light, predictable, safe. Yaman had done dozens like this before. The studio lights were warm, the host was smiling, and the audience energy felt relaxed, the kind of atmosphere designed to make celebrities open up just enough, but never too much. This wasn't meant to be an ambush. At least, that's what everyone believed at first. Ken sat comfortably in his chair, dressed in a sharp but casual look, answering questions about his latest projects, his time abroad, and his upcoming plans. He joked. He smiled. He looked confident, completely in control of the room. Viewers watching live had no reason to expect anything unusual. Until the tone shifted. It happened subtly at first. A pause that lasted just a second too long. A glance from the host toward the cue cards. A breath taken, slow, deliberate. Then came the question. Not shouted. Not dramatic. Just calmly spoken. So, Ken, there's one name that keeps coming up lately. Sara Bluma. The studio went quiet. Not the uncomfortable kind of silence, the dangerous kind. The kind that means something real has just entered the room. For a brief moment, Yaman didn't react. No smile. No laugh. No deflection. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, as if he hadn't heard the question properly. The audience leaned forward in their seats. Social media users froze mid-scroll. Even the host seemed to hesitate, as if wondering whether the question had gone too far. Then the cameras caught it. A blink, slow and deliberate. His jaw tightened. His shoulders stiffened just slightly. Yaman, the man known for his composure, looked caught off guard. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't rehearsed. And it definitely wasn't expected. The host continued carefully, sensing the tension but pushing forward anyway. People are curious, she said gently. You were seen together recently. Fans are asking questions. That's when Ken finally moved. He shifted in his chair, adjusting his posture as if buying himself time. His hands, once relaxed, came together. Fingers interlaced. A classic tell, something viewers who know him well immediately noticed. He let out a short breath through his nose. The smile he gave next didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, he began, then stopped. That pause lasted less than 2 seconds. But on live television, 2 seconds can feel like an eternity. Twitter exploded. Instagram stories lit up. Clips were already being screen recorded. Because everyone watching could feel it, this question had hit somewhere personal. Ken tried to recover, choosing his words carefully. I think, he said slowly, people sometimes connect dots that aren't meant to be connected. It sounded measured. Safe. Controlled. But his body language told a different story. The host noticed it too. She didn't interrupt. She let the moment breathe, a rare move in live TV, but a smart one. Because the more space there was, the more the tension grew. And then came the follow-up. Still, she said, you didn't deny it. That was when Yaman froze. Not metaphorically. Literally. His eyes locked onto the floor for a split second before lifting again. The studio camera zoomed in, catching every micro-expression. The hesitation, the calculation, the restraint. This was no longer just an interview. It was a moment. And whatever truth sat behind the name Sara Bluma, it was suddenly clear that Yaman hadn't been ready to face it, not here, not live, and not like this. Live television has a way of exposing things people don't plan to reveal. There's no edit button. No second take. No chance to rewind and choose better words. And in that moment, Yaman knew it. The pause after the host's follow-up question wasn't just hesitation, it was calculation. His eyes shifted slightly to the side, not toward the host, but toward the studio floor. A classic sign of someone searching internally, deciding how much truth can safely be released. Viewers at home noticed it instantly. Social media comments started flying in real time. He didn't expect that. Look at his face. That silence says more than words. Ken finally spoke again, but his voice was lower now. Slower. Less playful than before. I don't think everything needs to be explained, he said carefully. Some things are private. It was a neutral answer. A professional answer. But again, his body language told another story. His shoulders were tense. His jaw clenched briefly before he relaxed it again. His hands, still clasped together, tightened just a little more with each word. These weren't the movements of someone amused by rumors. They were the movements of someone protecting something. Or someone. The host nodded, acknowledging his response, but she didn't move on. Not yet. She leaned in slightly, her tone still calm but sharper now. Of course, she said. But you know how it works. When people see you together, they assume. That word, assume, landed heavily. Ken's lips pressed together. He inhaled through his nose again, a gesture that had become noticeable by now. His gaze lifted toward the audience, then back to the host. It was as if he was measuring the room, deciding whether honesty or distance would cost him less. For a split second, it looked like he might say something more. Something real. Then he stopped himself. I think, he said, choosing each word slowly, that not every connection needs a label. That sentence changed everything. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't a confirmation. It was something in between. And that gray area is where rumors thrive. The audience murmured softly. Not loud enough to interrupt, but loud enough to register. Even the host raised her eyebrows for a brief moment before recovering her neutral expression. Because she knew it too. That wasn't the answer people expected. If there was nothing there, he could have laughed it off. If there was something serious, he could have shut it down firmly. But instead, he left the door open. Clips of the moment were already circulating online, zoomed in on his face, slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. Fans replayed the pause before his answer, the way his voice softened when he spoke, the tension in his posture. And then came the most telling detail of all. As the conversation finally shifted to another topic, Ken didn't relax. He nodded politely. He answered the next question. He even smiled again. But it wasn't the same smile. Something had changed. The ease he had at the beginning of the interview was gone. In its place was a controlled calm, the kind that comes after someone has been unexpectedly pushed into emotional territory. Backstage, producers exchanged looks. The segment had just become the most talked about moment of the night. And Yaman knew it. Because when the cameras cut briefly to the audience, he exhaled deeply and ran a hand across his knee, a grounding gesture, subtle but revealing. Whatever the truth was between him and Sara Bluma, one thing was now undeniable, that question had touched something real. And the silence surrounding it was louder than any confession could have been. While the audience at home focused on Yaman's words, an entirely different story was unfolding behind the cameras. Live interviews don't end when the host changes the topic. In many ways, that's when the real reactions begin. As soon as the segment moved forward, a subtle shift rippled through the studio. Crew members who had been relaxed moments earlier now stood more alert. A producer near the monitors leaned in closer, eyes locked on the screen replaying Ken's reaction just seconds ago. They knew what they had just captured. Gold. But also risk. Because that question about Sara Bluma hadn't been thrown in casually. It had been discussed. Timed. Carefully placed into the flow of the interview where Ken would least expect it, after the easy laughs, after the safe answers, when his guard was naturally lower. And it worked. Backstage whispers started almost immediately. Did you see his face? That wasn't planned. He froze. Ken sensed it too. Even as he answered the next question about upcoming projects, his awareness had sharpened. He sat straighter now, his responses more precise, more controlled. The warmth from earlier was replaced by professionalism, the kind celebrities use when they feel exposed. During a brief pause for a live transition, the host leaned slightly toward him and whispered something off mic. Ken nodded, but his expression remained serious. The cameras came back on within seconds, but that micro-interaction didn't go unnoticed by the crew. Because it confirmed what everyone suspected. The Sara Bluma question wasn't over. After the interview ended, applause filled the studio. The red light switched off. The show moved on. But Ken didn't immediately stand. He remained seated for a moment longer than necessary, hands resting on his thighs, gaze unfocused. It was the kind of pause people take when they're replaying something in their mind, wondering how it came across, what it revealed, and what the consequences might be. A member of the production team approached, offering a polite thank you. Ken smiled briefly, thanked them back, and stood. But those close enough noticed the tension still lingering in his posture. Backstage, conversations grew louder. Phones came out. Clips were shared. Group chats lit up. One assistant producer reportedly asked, "Do you think he'll address it again?" Another responded, "Not tonight." But this isn't over. Because everyone understood one crucial thing, that question had cracked open a door. And once a door like that opens in the public eye, it rarely closes quietly. Meanwhile, online, fans were dissecting every second of the exchange. Slow-motion clips of Ken's pause, his choice of words, his body language flooded timelines. Some called it confirmation. Others called it avoidance. But nearly everyone agreed on one point. He hadn't been ready. What made the moment even more powerful was what wasn't said. No denial. No joke. No playful deflection. Just restraint. And restraint, in the world of celebrity culture, often speaks louder than emotion. As Ken left the studio, a member of his team leaned in and whispered something. He nodded again, this time more firmly, as if acknowledging a problem that would need to be managed quickly. Because tomorrow's headlines were already writing themselves. Ken Yaman freezes on live TV. Sara Bluma question leaves Ken speechless. Fans divided after tense interview moment. And Ken knew it. As he stepped into the night air outside the studio, pulling his jacket tighter around him, he exhaled slowly. The interview was over. But the story had just begun. By the time Ken Yaman reached home that night, the damage, or the impact, was already done. What had started as a single, carefully worded question on live television had turned into a full-scale media storm within hours. Clips from the interview spread at lightning speed, shared and reshared across every major platform. Twitter threads dissected his pauses. TikTok videos zoomed in on his facial expressions. Instagram Reels replayed the exact moment his voice shifted. The internet had decided this was not nothing. Fan accounts posted side-by-side comparisons, Ken at the beginning of the interview versus Ken after the Sara Bluma question. The contrast was undeniable. The relaxed confidence. The tightened posture. The smile that no longer reached his eyes. Comments flooded in from all sides. He looked nervous. That wasn't acting. He's hiding something. Or maybe he's protecting someone. Within hours, hashtags began trending in multiple countries. Some framed it as a confirmation of rumors. Others defended him fiercely, arguing that privacy didn't equal guilt. But even those defending him agreed on one thing. He had been shaken. Entertainment journalists wasted no time. Articles popped up with headlines crafted to provoke clicks and debate. Words like freeze, shock, awkward silence, and unexpected reaction dominated coverage. Screenshots of Ken mid-pause became the visual symbol of the moment. And then, inevitably, attention turned to Sara Bluma. Her name, once quietly circulating in fan circles, was now everywhere. Old photos were resurfaced. Past interviews were re-examined. Even the smallest interactions were suddenly framed as clues. But what caught people's attention most wasn't what she posted. It was what she didn't. No immediate response. No denial. No clarification. Just silence. And in celebrity culture, silence is rarely neutral. Fans began reading into the timing. If there's nothing going on, why not say so, some asked. Others countered, maybe they agreed not to fuel the drama. Speculation split the fandom cleanly down the middle. One side believed the interview reaction was proof of a real, private bond, something unexpected and unfinished. The other insisted Ken was simply blindsided by an invasive question, reacting like any human would under pressure. But late that night, one small detail reignited the fire. A subtle social media move. An observant fan noticed that Sara Bluma had liked a post, not about the interview directly, but about respecting boundaries and unspoken connections. The post was vague. Poetic. Easy to dismiss. Except nothing was dismissed anymore. Screenshots spread instantly. Theories multiplied. Was it coincidence? A quiet response? Or a message meant only for those paying close attention? Meanwhile, Ken remained silent. No statement. No clarification. No follow-up interview. For his team, this was deliberate. Sometimes, saying nothing allows the noise to burn itself out. Sometimes, silence keeps control. But this time felt different. Because the narrative was no longer fully in his hands. Fans weren't just reacting, they were emotionally invested. Many felt they had witnessed something raw, something unguarded, and they didn't want it brushed aside with a generic PR line. The story had evolved. This wasn't just about a rumor anymore. It was about authenticity. About what happens when a carefully managed public image collides with an unscripted moment. And as dawn broke the next morning, one truth became impossible to ignore: that single question had changed the conversation forever. The morning after the interview, Yaman woke up to a reality he knew all too well, but hadn't planned for this time. His phone was full. Missed calls. Unread messages. Links to articles, clips, screenshots. The industry had already moved on from whether the moment mattered. The only question now was what he would do next. Because in celebrity culture, silence is a strategy, but only for a limited time. Can's team understood this better than anyone. Behind closed doors, discussions were already happening. Not about damage control, but about direction. Should he clarify? Ignore it? Redirect attention to work? Or let the mystery breathe a little longer? Each option carried risk. A denial could feel forced after such a visible reaction. A confirmation would ignite a completely different firestorm. And silence invited interpretation. What made this situation different from past rumors was the rawness of the moment that started it all. Fans weren't reacting to paparazzi photos or anonymous sources. They were reacting to him, to his voice, his pause, his body language on live television. That's not something you can edit away. Colleagues close to Kim reportedly noticed a shift in his mood that day. Not panic. Not anger. But reflection. The kind that comes when you realize something personal slipped through the cracks of a public persona you've carefully built. Because despite years in the spotlight, moments like that still matter. Ken has always been known for control over his image, his narrative, his boundaries. Yet that interview reminded everyone, including himself, that control isn't absolute. Not when emotions are involved. Not when a single name can change the temperature of a room. As the days passed, the media waited. Would he address it in another interview? Would he post something subtle? Would Sara Bluma speak? Nothing came. And strangely, that made the moment even stronger. Fans began reframing the narrative. Instead of demanding answers, many started expressing empathy. He's human. That question was unfair. Not everything needs to be public. Others, however, remained convinced that what they saw was genuine vulnerability, proof of something real being protected, not denied. And maybe that's why this moment resonated so deeply. It wasn't dramatic shouting. It wasn't scandalous confirmation. It was restraint. A man choosing his words carefully under pressure, aware that millions were watching, and choosing not to turn something personal into entertainment. In the long run, this moment may not damage Yaman's career at all. In fact, it may humanize him. Because audiences today are tired of perfection. They respond to cracks, to pauses, to moments that feel unpolished and real. That interview offered exactly that, whether intentionally or not. As for Sara Bluma, her silence remained just as powerful. No fuel added. No narrative hijacked. Just distance, or discretion. And so the story settles into something more complex than a rumor. It becomes a reminder that behind every headline is a person. Behind every pause is a decision. And behind every question caught off guard, is a truth not yet ready to be spoken. For now, Yaman has chosen silence. But silence, as this story has shown, can speak volumes.